Thanks for listening. Before the episode gets started, I wanted to leave you a quick message. One, in episodes 2, 3, and 4, we realized that there was a couple of audio issues with our recording mic and our setup and all of that stuff. We launched this podcast without buying a lot of gear and without knowing 1,000,000% what we were doing in terms of how to handle audio files and all of that stuff. And so the second, third, and fourth episode all have some issues with them where a guest maybe sounds really quiet or someone pounds on the table and it hits the mic stand or something like that. So those things happen in those episodes. If you're the type of person who gets really bothered by that stuff, then I would suggest you start at episode 1 that is just Allie and myself, or you could skip ahead to episode 5 with our friend Simi, and that audio is much more clear and we don't have all of those issues. So thanks for bearing with us and learning. We've had great feedback on episodes 2, 3, and 4, so those are great. Our guests share great stuff, great stories. We have a great time with them, but if audio bothers you a lot, go to episodes 1 or 5. Peace. Thank you. Welcome to the Wonder Jam cast, and on today's episode, we are talking to our good friend Olivera, who is the owner, founder of Holy Craft, which she describes as a feminist gift shop.
It's awesome.
Here in Columbia. Yeah, it's very awesome.
Like, I want to go there
right now.
Tomorrow.
We're going to quit.
Well,
okay, thanks for listening.
Goodbye.
And she is the owner, founder, starter of Surprise, which is a
modern party supply store.
Right. So if you imagine a sucky party store, but like a lot cuter and more awesome, mm-hmm. It's that. And that is in the short north in Columbus. Holy Craft is in Clintonville.
Correct.
And how did we come across Olivera?
I don't know exactly, but I know she did coaching with you like a year or two ago.
Oh my gosh, I don't even think she knows this, but I remember when she...
Oh, I thought you meant she doesn't even know she did coaching.
She doesn't even know she did coaching. My coaching's so good, you don't even know.
You don't even remember.
You don't even know I'm doing it. Yeah, she did. But I remember when she submitted a form, when she said, I want coaching, mm-hmm. and I just remember being overwhelmed. Because we love her, yeah. But also she has like an impeccable reputation. Yeah. And I've never heard another person talk bad about her. I have never heard her, I've seen, she's awesome. And she's been awesome for a long time. Mm-hmm. And she's done a lot for people. She supports people. She gets involved in stuff. Yeah. Goes to people's events. She does all of that, which is very cool. Yeah. And I think what I didn't know about her, well, first when that email came in, she said she wanted to go through coaching. I was very overwhelmed. Like, I don't, can you coach me? Like, I very much had some of that. And working with her was one of the first times leading up to her. The people I had done coaching with were all people who were like a year or two away from being full-time doing their own thing. So they were just starting out. And that was the first one where I was like, I think the process I have for coaching is good enough that it will help her. But I don't know I don't know the answers for her out of the gate. Yeah. Where I know the answers for other people out of the gate. Yeah, totally. Depending on where they are. But I don't know what to say to someone who's been around for a decade. Yeah.
Like a 10-year-old.
Yeah.
Or her.
But we actually figured out some cool stuff, which I was super proud of.
My joke didn't land.
Wait, what did you say?
I said a 10-year-old or her. Because you said anyone who's been around
for a decade. Yeah, right. If you're over 10, I can't help you. But if you're 8 and starting a business, contact me. I'm so good.
You could start like toddler business coaching.
Mm-hmm. Right. And then be like, don't go to college. Don't even go to middle school. Don't even go to elementary.
Just start your business right now. Yeah. You can't even
There's no point of going past 3rd grade. That's what I say.
Yeah.
I don't say that. I officially do not say that.
For sure.
Olivera, I had a killer point.
Oh, I'm sorry.
One of the things that she talks about in this episode is she shares a lot about why like there's parts of her background that I didn't know.
Yep.
For sure.
For sure.
Which I think you start to see everything that she does with her businesses and the way she supports the community.
I was going to say community, and even in the people she's invested in or allowed herself to connect with, you know, like when she first opened the store and stuff like that. So yeah, I loved talking to her. She brings what she believes to be right and true and just in the world into her feminist gift shop. You know, it's like it could be just a really fun place, but it also is very
she talks about that.
Serious. Her politics is very a part of her life.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, she's very active.
And we
but
love
she
her
talks
for it.
she talks about being positive in that place that can be very negative, very full of protest, very full of which are all valid things. But she talks about that being in supportive, positive space within it, which is cool.
My favorite part, and you can just continue playing this podcast if you want to hear more, but she talks about how they're an affirming brand, that it affirms who you are, and I really love that. Yeah. So keep on listening and hear from Olivera. So Olivera, tell us about what you do as a business owner. What do you own?
I own 2 retail stores here in Columbus. I've owned Holy Craft in Clintonville for almost 12 years now.
Amazing.
It's a handmade gift store. And then just last year we opened Surprise Modern Party and Cocktail Goods in the Short North. So that is brand new. It's a modern party supply store.
That's cool.
That's so great.
Surprise been open for not a year.
Not a year.
Yeah.
No.
So. Year this summer?
Yes, in August. Yep.
Cool. So you started Holy Craft 12 years ago?
Yes.
That's amazing. How have things changed even in your neighborhood or starting Surprise now, like compared to when you started Holy Craft? What year was that? I'm bad at math.
2005.
Yeah.
It was a world of difference. It was before social media, really.
Yeah.
So it was, we envisioned ourselves as very much a neighborhood shop. And I feel still like we are.
It still is.
Yeah. Like we really cater to like our neighborhood. We're very Clintonville. And we didn't have to worry about any of the social media kind of stuff back then because it just didn't exist.
Texting wasn't even huge.
No. I think maybe we had a MySpace page.
Yeah. That's amazing.
We gotta look that up. We gotta try to find.
I still want to find my Zanga journal, but I cannot find it. I'm so mad.
Mine was called Beach. My name on Zanga was Beach Boy because I went to Florida once and loved the beach. So I was like,
but you grew up in Indiana.
Yeah, I was in the middle of a cornfield.
Mine was
Beach Boy 411. Also, that was my number.
You have the note. Yeah. Mine was this was my Zanga and my AIM screen name, but it was like Alicona, which is Allie in Hawaiian, because I thought that was cool. We're obviously trying to become more tropical.
Yeah. We're like, you were in Illinois. Yeah, we were in a cornfield, and we were like, let's pretend we were on the beach.
Yeah. That's really cool. So when you first started, did you live in Clintonville, and felt like you wanted to have a presence there?
Yeah, I did. I lived actually right down the street from the very first Holy Craft location. I was walking down the street to the Convenience Mart, and I looked over and saw a for rent sign, and I sort of peeked in the windows, and it looked, the place was trashed. It was really junky and terrible looking, and I was like, I bet I could afford this.
Yeah. It looks not that great. That's amazing.
What did you do before?
I was a bar manager right before, and that was something I just kind of fell into. I went to a bar, my neighborhood bar on my birthday. And I was sad and I was drinking in the afternoon. And I just finished a master's degree and couldn't get a job anywhere. I couldn't get an interview. It was just what am I gonna do? Yeah. And they were like, well, hey, we have an opening for a karaoke host on Friday nights.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, yep, I'll take it.
Sounds amazing.
So I started hosting karaoke, and I think I just did it for maybe 3 or 4 weeks before they were like, wow,
you're capable.
Really, they're like, you're really responsible. Would you like to manage the bar?
Oh my gosh.
Wait. You're like, but can I still do karaoke?
I still do karaoke,
for
sure.
Okay, good.
That's your love.
Yes.
You don't want to give that up.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's great.
What was your master's degree in?
Women's Studies.
Okay.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So it's crazy how you're like, yeah, this is fine.
Yep.
Yeah,
It
that's
totally
amazing.
worked.
Yeah,
Totally worked out.
that's really cool.
And then you went straight from bar managing to Holy Craft.
Absolutely.
Did you go, so was it full time, or did you kept managing bar, opened Holy Craft, kept those both going, or what was that transition like?
I think I did leave it. I left the bar stuff behind. I'm still a karaoke host, actually, probably like 3 or 4 years in.
Oh, cool.
That's your true passion.
Yeah.
You're like, that's what we should. You're like, you can ask me about business, whatever, I don't care, but karaoke hosting is like my thing.
That was, I still have, I still can't give up. Like, I have like a wig collection,
Yeah,
a movie
yeah, you
collection.
can't.
It's
No.
like, what if I need that?
I've
extra
seen
again?
Instagram videos of you karaoke.
Oh yeah,
It's
you're
impressive.
killer.
Yeah,
It's a good time.
it is.
Yeah, and then so just had the idea for Holy Craft and
That's
started
awesome.
doing that. Yeah.
How did you know how to do it? Like, how did you be like, oh, I'm gonna contact people who make handmade goods, local stuff?
Yeah, no, I didn't know.
You just
You're just like, you're sitting here shaking your head no, of like,
I love it though.
don't know.
That's what
how.
I think is people get so curious about though, is someone has an idea or a passion or I want to get out of a job, but I mean they have the internet now, which is like the internet's crazy now. So I think it's a little bit easier, but talk us through sort of that process of like getting it stocked or like.
Yeah, it was so I had a little bit of experience in event organizing. I helped organize like a feminist music festival, arts festival called Lady Fest Ohio. And so I had a few contacts from there, and that's actually where I met a lot of people who were doing some craft and had no place to sell it. But we had this like amazing craft fair with like stuff I'd never seen before in like the basement of a church that 12 people came to. And I was like, why isn't this like, why isn't there a home for this somewhere? Why can't I just like
All
shop
year.
for this? There was no Etsy at the time. So that's kind of where it came from. Okay. And I had the experience of organizing, and I had those contacts. And then the summer I was thinking about it, Etsy came out on beta. Like, okay, there's this new place called Etsy. Somebody else hosted like an indie craft fair. Actually, my friend Amy D. Later, a really good friend. So I went to like her craft fair, and I had like it was a zine actually. It was like, do you want to consign at Holy Craft?
Oh, that's amazing.
That was my first like consignment
like a business
contract.
card almost,
So we had like a little zine that we passed out, and
that's so cool.
So it was like very DIY at the beginning,
which is cool. I mean, to think of how much you can, like you said, utilize like social media now, but I think it's cool when things start organically. Yeah, you know.
I think when stuff starts organically, the world wants it and needs it. It's not over marketed. It's not something that you've forced and tricked people into thinking they want. You kind of just showed up and you're like, oh, I'm paying attention. This is really cool stuff. There's not a space for it. That seems like it would be useful. So I know you're friends with Amy, who is very involved in the craft world, and Megan is very involved in the craft world. When did those connections happen? Because you've had a group of crafters who have gotten together for 10 years, right?
That's really cool.
So how did that start?
It started, it's funny, Amy and I became friends because she was a stay-at-home mom at the time, and she was like trying to start a craft business, and I was sort of landlocked in the store all day, every day, and so she knew where I was, so she would call me every day.
It's like, I know you have to be here. That's amazing.
I have to pick up the phone.
Because it's your business, and you can't not answer the calls at work.
Right.
That's
so
amazing.
She would call every day and be like, what's up? How's it going? What's business like? What do you think craft should look like?
Yeah.
So like we'd have these conversations about like craft and business, and we'd have them daily.
That's so cool.
So that was kind of the start, and then
kind of like coworkers.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. And when I had a kid and worked a lot from home, I realized like the importance of like just some like interaction with adults around what you were doing at work.
Yep.
It's really hard to be alone all the time doing that.
Yeah.
So
that's really cool.
Yeah. So and then we were like, oh, we should meet with other crafty people.
Yeah.
And we should hang out. So we ended up doing like a monthly meetup at the Sterling Girl.
Oh, that's so
cool.
How
the Craft Cotillion got started.
Aww.
Yeah. Funny thing now, like 10 years later, actually, lots of them don't craft anymore.
Yeah.
Lots of people are like, we still get together occasionally. And
those connections are still there.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's so cool.
For sure.
It kind of is like a really good example of times where you need to sort of consistently force a friendship, like not force it, but like hey, we don't know each other, but I think that we could be really helpful as friends or acquaintances, or
We moved to Columbus and lived up in Powell, and I always tell people we were 22, 23.
Mm-hmm. Powell's like a suburb.
In Powell, yeah.
It is a suburb.
And it was.
It's not.
Powell is like a suburb.
It is.
Powell is exactly similar to a suburb that it is one. And we were just like, everyone up here is 40 and 14. And then here we are, like, there's not. I would go to Applebee's when this was like when LeBron first got to. Shout out to Applebee's. This podcast is sponsored by Applebee's. It's not. But you can contact us if you'd like to sponsor us, Applebee's. Mm-hmm. I would go every time the Cavs played, and I would watch. Applebee's became my like go-to, and I became really good friends with the bartender. He would always wear a LeBron James jersey underneath of his Applebee's stuff on nice. The Cavs played. I spent so much money at Applebee's because if you sit and drink at Applebee's,
many of those tall beers.
Oh my gosh, yeah, and those are like that's not like a $2 beer. That's like a $6 or $8 thing, and I did a lot of them. But it was just we got really tired of Columbus, and we were going to leave. We were going to move back to. A lot of our friends went to Indianapolis or Chicago, and so we started looking. We started applying for jobs in those places, and it wasn't until we were like, we're going to give this a real go, and we looked for like every meetup in the city. We went to everything. Yeah. Someone was like, "Hey, I'm having a fundraiser for my friend's dog that's sick at Dirty Frank's," and 6 other people went. Yeah. People would just tweet like, "Hey, we're gonna be at this bar," and we're like, "Drive there." And it was, we spent a lot of time meeting people who were awkward, or people who probably thought we were awkward, or people who were not gonna be our friends. But you do all of that, and it was like I always liken it to dating, where you're like you talk to a lot of people, and then hopefully you find a couple. Or one, or whatever. Right. But it was it took a lot of work. It took a lot of like intentional effort of there's a bunch of strangers getting together somewhere. I'm invited to it, and I'm going to go to that.
But there's kind of a correlation with you being involved in the craft world or supporting all of these different fairs or like collaborations or groups, and then opening a spot where people then come and support you. Like, I think there's that give and take where like we spent so much time connecting with people in Columbus, and now we have a space where we can invite others to come into. I think it's cool for all of those things to sort of fuel each other. Right.
Yeah, you're not just taking all the time.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. What are some ways? So I remember when I first worked with you the first time. I said your name to somebody, and they're like, "Oh, she's like the OG of crafting in Columbus," which. Yeah. Whether that's true or not, you should put that as your title.
Yeah. If I ever write a resume again,
yeah, exactly.
That also.
If you ever write a resume again, that's how I feel.
Which would be like super sad if we're in the moment where we're like, because it's a very defined moment for all of us. We're like, so now I have to go compete with a bunch of kids out of college for this job that I don't really want. Yeah.
Let's describe what I've been doing for the last 12 years of my life.
Anything.
I'll do whatever.
Name it, I probably did it.
Does it pay? Mm-hmm. What have you noticed about ways that you found to contribute to other local businesses? Because I know you've done that with us and participate in other businesses rather than just take. If somebody was listening to this looking like, I want to get involved somewhere, I want to go participate somewhere, what would you say? How would you advise someone to go about that?
Yeah. I think I'm a big fan of just show up. It's exactly what you guys are talking about, like just going to things, just showing up and being, sometimes like if you're doing an event or like hosting a fundraiser for your friend's dog, you just need bodies in the room. You just need people to show up and like, and be supported. And so if you can have that ability to go out and be that supportive person, do it. Just show up. Yeah. And people remember that too.
They do.
They remember who shows up. Yeah. And like later on when you want to like work with that person, that person will remember that like you reached out to them and did something. My dad, his best business advice that he ever gave me was always be the person that everybody wants to work with. Yep. Because like always be flexible, always be easy to work with, and then people will want to work with you.
Yeah, I totally agree. Even just we've had enough events or collaborated and hosted things for our clients where you really do. You like see that person walk in, you're like, that was so nice that they came all the way, after work or something like that. Yeah. You don't forget.
It makes such a difference.
Yeah.
As you're getting started, opening up Holy Craft 12 years ago, we've been around for 4 years, and 12 years seems like 100 years.
That's amazing.
It feels like 100 years.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. That's the first thing we learned. We would always tell people, like, oh, you see us like year one, our photos like aged. We aged 10 years.
My brother just sent me a picture of me from 4 years ago, and he said, #not stressed. And I just, like, look like I have no care in the world.
Yeah, and he's doing some of his own stuff now, and it's like...
We just look a little older, yeah.
It's very different. So what is, in those first kind of getting started, what were some of the things you bumped into where you were like, oh, I didn't know this was going to be a challenge I have to overcome? Or, like, what are some of the things that surprised you?
Yeah. There was a lot of challenges. So I was coming from like this event background. So the weirdest thing for me at the very beginning was coming in, and we had this great grand opening. When we first opened the store, it was great. Like, everybody I knew came. It was this great party and this great thing. Oh, it was a wonderful event. And then the next morning I had to go in and unlock the door. And it was like, oh, yeah, this is now what I do every single day, day in, day out. And I had not really thought that far ahead.
Yeah.
I thought as far as like opening a store. Like, I'm going to open the store.
But I'm also going to be here every day.
Yeah. And this is now, what am I going to do with the store tomorrow and the next day and the day after that?
Yeah.
So there was very little planning that went in at the very beginning. And, you know, for better or for worse, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's the way, there wasn't a lot of planning at the beginning.
Yeah.
But it did leave this room for flexibility, where I didn't have this preconceived notion of, like, this is how we're going to grow, this is what's going to do really well, this is what's going to happen, which kind of freed me to see what worked and go with that naturally, rather than try and, like, force the idea of, like, no, this is supposed to work, this is not supposed to work. So those first few years were pretty loosey-goosey. But,
I understand. I think, like, you saying that resonated with me, and I think the first time I heard a business person speak about, if you start a business, you're creating a job for yourself, versus someone who's, like, an entrepreneur is technically someone who can, like, exit, like, that kind of concept. They framed it that way, where I got kind of defensive, like, well, I don't think that's true, but I did have to come to the conclusion that, no, I started this business, but I have to be active in it daily. I mean, besides, like, the occasional vacation, but
absolutely.
And being okay with it, and then also learning, like, how do I want to change that? But being very dependent on you, it's now starting to shift. And I'm sure you experience that with the store. Like, you can staff it now. You don't have to be there every day, you know. But I'm sure at the beginning you're like, I'll be there.
Yeah, I was it. I didn't hire a staff at the beginning. Yeah, I was like, that was my job. So I was there day in, day out.
For sure.
Working karaoke at night.
Yeah.
You still kept doing karaoke.
It's so great. Yeah,
of
for
course.
years, yeah.
Of course.
We'll
never stop.
That's
What
awesome.
besides? So you launch a business with a big event. Kind of flex your event planning, organizing muscles. Was there other? What were, like, the difficult roles? Like, so you have this event planner, which is, like, kind of, I don't know, sits underneath marketing or something like that, launching something. What were other things that you're like, oh, I didn't know that this would be my job now?
I mean, I didn't really know. A lot of it was that, like, planning, forecasting thing, where, like, I didn't know. I knew how to work retail. I knew how to work customer service. I knew how to be nice to people and help them, you know. And I was good at, like, contracts and organization. So, like, I knew how to do things the right way. Like, that's one thing we were never loosey-goosey about. Like, we always had a solid contract. We always had, like, were able to explain our terms really well. So people felt comfortable working with us. The things that I was bad at was, like, the business end, I guess. The marketing stuff and the, like, growing the business. The technical stuff I was actually better at, and the organizational stuff than I was at, like, even thinking of it as a business and working in it as this is something that's going to grow. It was more of a, like, this is my job. This is, you know.
Gotcha.
I relate to that in that, like, not necessarily, I'm like how you described yourself at the beginning, where you don't have any preconceived notions of, like, what is this going to be? And I think those technical day-to-day tasks all of a sudden add up to years, and you're like, okay, so this is what it is now because I've been doing the work, but if I want to shift anything, Absolutely. I have to day-to-day shift things, you know. Yeah. We talked about it in the first episode where I struggle with that a lot.
How has been, so all of that with opening Holy Craft, and then you're doing it again with Surprise. Was there a lot of tie-in from, people trust this Holy Craft thing, they know I'm opening another thing? Because you didn't necessarily, if people pay close enough attention, they understand that they're tied together. Mm-hmm. But to a generic person walking by the store, they would never, Nope. They might not know the two businesses are connected.
Mm-hmm. No.
Did you see a lot of overlap, or what was it like doing this a second time?
It was a whole different world doing it a second time. Mm-hmm. It was completely different. It was bigger in a lot more ways, more expensive in a lot more ways. There's more like kind of writing on it because we do have a staff. We open with a staff. And so I take it very seriously when I employ people, like when they rely on me for their livelihoods.
Yeah.
So there was more on the line. So it's a little bit more, I wasn't like a 25-year-old who's just like, I'm going to open the store, see what happens. This time I actually was like a lady with a plan. To open a party store.
But I have a plan.
That's awesome.
So it was very, very different. The world moves much faster now, I feel like. So it's different to jump into like starting a concept from scratch. But it was exactly what I wanted.
Cool.
I didn't want to, we had to grow. We could do a second location. I did not want to take Holy Craft and open a second location of it somewhere. It's a concept that is very close to my heart. It's very close to who I am, and it's built on all of these personal relationships we have with all these vendors and customers. And it somehow it cheapened it in my mind to like take it and like. Let's just like
replicate it.
Let's take it 10 miles away and see if we can just do it again in this neighborhood. That didn't feel good.
For sure.
It never, because people brought it up, like, when are you going to do a second location? It never felt right. We're very much at home where we are.
That's cool.
So we grew within Clintonville. Like we started out in a 300 square foot storefront, moved up to like 1,000 square feet or so, and now we're like over 2,000 square feet on the farmer's market. It's exactly where we want to be. We love it, and that's where we're going to stay.
That's awesome.
And that's where Holy Craft's going to live, hopefully forever. And so when it came time to do something new and like kind of itching for a challenge, the idea of like a brand new concept, something that even like doesn't exist as a retail concept. That as far as it's certainly not locally.
No.
It was exciting.
That's really exciting.
And it has proven to be very challenging, but in a good way.
It's challenging. Oh, go ahead.
You can remember what you're going to say, but I think that's every time we work with ambitious, creative people, it's like you can't help but work on something that you feel like doesn't exist or should exist, but then you also go through all that headache of, it's a lot easier to just rip something off and like do a little bit different versus saying like, here's a brand new thing you didn't know you needed, and let me educate you for 5 years about why you care, and then everybody's like into it. You were doing Etsy before everybody was doing that, and now to do it again would be probably nearly boring for you because you're like, oh, this is just a process and whatever. I think it's something creative people struggle with a lot, is as soon as you get good enough at something and the world gets ready for your idea that you could like cash in and replicate this in 50 other cities, you don't want to do that anymore. You want to do something weird and struggle and make it hard on yourself all over again.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I was going to ask, is it difficult or was it difficult with Surprise because you juggled 2 stores, or was it because of the concept? Was it the location? Was it how fast everything goes?
A mix of all of it.
All of it? Okay.
Yeah. I still say, like, I'm not sure how 2 stores ends up being more than twice the work, but somehow, like, that math didn't work.
Yeah, it like multiplied a lot. Yeah, for sure.
It was, so it was a little bit more time consuming than I thought it was going to be. So that's been just kind of like, making that work the first year has been tough.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a mix of like, it's different neighborhood, different concept, different clientele, different messaging. And so it is like, and especially because Holy Craft is so much my voice. like it's so easy to write
you.
an Instagram post
Yeah.
because I'm just writing it as me.
That's so true.
And suddenly, like, surprise is a little bit different of a clientele. It's not me. I'm not the customer.
Yeah.
Primarily.
Yeah.
So it's different. So we're figuring out ways to make that work and to make that like easier and fun.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Instead of like that part shouldn't be a challenge because it's something that I do love.
Yeah.
And so we're kind of working on ways to make that fun.
Right. Or to bring in staff to like let them talk as Surprise or as Holy Craft. I think that's probably one of the things that we talk about the most is working with so many different clients, like speaking as that client.
Right.
If we need to is like, okay, like you need to almost get a little neutral and like how you're thinking through things.
We don't run social media for people at the moment. It's not a service that we offer, but we do for one person right now who's just a stressed out business owner who we're like, hey, let us run your stuff for you so you don't have to log into Facebook. And the voice just sounds this. It's like the Wonder Jam and that other business have the same.
I'm like, how is this different?
Yeah. And they're like, oh, what's the voice? I'm like, I'm just doing it for you so you don't have to log into Facebook. So like, if you want to get into like, what's your voice? I don't have it. I'm just making it easy.
Yeah. It takes time. Like it takes time to talk about it. And it sometimes feels like it can be redundant, but it's not because it's obviously difficult,
So two things I want to, as starting a surprise, I kind of want to talk about that a little bit. So what was it just a creative itch in the middle of, you had been doing this thing for 10 years, you've been doing the Holy Craft thing for 10 years, and you're just like, I need like a new challenge, or did you see some opportunity that you wanted to kind of chase, or explain a little bit about the motivation?
Yeah, it started with the challenge. It started with the like, what's our big thing this year? What are we gonna do? What are we working on? Like working towards, and then it was the opportunity came when we hosted like a beach themed event actually at Holy Craft.
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh, okay, I'll just go get some party supplies. So I like went to like big box party store. I'm like, wow, this is
horrible.
Like, what a terrible shopping experience. Like I work retail,
I'm very stressed out.
Customer service,
Yeah.
And this is an awful shopping experience.
And that's all there is.
And I had to drive like 30 minutes.
Yes.
Yeah.
I had to like really go out of my way for this, and like it's awful, and like there should really be a better place to get party supplies, like a happier place.
Yeah, that's not online. That will take a week, because that's frustrating.
Yeah, I was definitely shopping the day before the event.
How it usually happens.
So then we saw an opportunity, and I've always loved parties. I've always loved theme parties. I've always loved big celebrations, the event organizing background, like all of that.
Oh yeah.
So I was like, oh, this totally makes sense.
Yeah.
It's something that like we need, and it's something that I love. And so we kind of just decided to put it all together. And
that's amazing. What was the time frame between idea and open? Do you know?
Gosh, that's one I don't remember. So it would have been summer of 2015.
Okay.
Would have been the summer that I was like, this is a terrible shopping experience.
Yeah. So like a year.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
that's
about
awesome.
a year.
I think that's the thing that a lot of people don't realize with a lot of our clients who have a brick and mortar. It's a year plus of like idea to build out and opening the doors. Yeah. And some people come to us like, I'm hoping within like 3 to 4 months I have an idea, or like I have an eye on a location. And it's hard to not be like cynical and be like, yeah, right. But
no one we work with has opened
on time
ever. Ever.
And it's great now to be able to talk them through like, you should be okay. Like we affirm that it's like, that's normal, you know, versus like scoffing at their idea. We can definitely say like, it's normal for there to be delays or,
That's one of, that's a crazy benefit of what we do that I would have never anticipated is that, we've worked with 50 people who are opening brick and mortar stores. And so you're like, oh, I can see some patterns that not everybody gets to see,
right?
Which is cool. The other thing I was going to ask you about Surprise was how, what were the new things you've learned there? As far as you've had this thing going for 10 years, probably felt like at least competent enough in it to be willing to open a new thing. What were the things you bumped into with Surprise getting started? What are the things you're like, oh man, I didn't anticipate that?
It was opening Surprise with an entirely new staff was a challenge. Like opening and having to like staff the entire store from the get-go.
Separately.
Yeah, and like and not like people coming up through the business. Like, oh, they start working on the weekends and they start working a little bit more, and then they're the manager. Like, they're, you know, so people like instead of growing with the business, it's all new to everyone. And like, here's this manual that we wrote last night for the business, and
it doesn't exist, right? Like we wrote a manual based on like ideas we have, not on anything that really happens.
No. And this sort of like we're all learning together too. That was like I did not know that there was so much to learn about balloons. Like that, there's so I
didn't
so
either.
much.
After talking to you, I was like, I was looking at all the combos.
Yeah.
I'm like, wow, that's true.
There's so much going on with balloons.
We're sitting
no
on
idea.
Disclaimer: we're working on a surprise website right now behind the scenes. That's not.
We're just discussions of just the balloons was like a huge part
it's
of
like
the
its
conversation.
own separate.
Yeah.
Thing.
At some point, I remember being like, "So Olivera, there's the foil balloon that has the color of foil, the number, the letter."
So many combinations. Yes.
Filled, not filled. You know.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like curling ribbon and a different color of ribbon options, and there's just like a lot going on with balloons that I think none of us were prepared for. And you know, of course, it happens that. You know, balloons are our number one seller.
Yeah.
So, like, right off the bat.
And you would not have said that 2 years ago. Like, I bet,
I did not think we would sell that many balloons.
No,
So we very quickly, all together, had to learn about balloons.
Yeah. You know what's kind of cool, though, is, like, I'm listening to this thinking, you know about such rad parties that are happening in the city. Like, it'd be kind of fun to be like, wow, lots of people are having parties.
Definitely.
You know?
Yeah. We get good invitations.
Oh, I bet. I bet.
Well,
that's amazing.
Because in a similar way, when we started the Wonder Jam, Allie would not have called herself a photographer.
No, never.
And now, like, at least 60% of our business is done. Photography is like solely.
But you have to be flexible. Like, you can't go in saying, like, well, I don't want to sell so many balloons. Like, no one says that.
Yeah.
You know?
I just remember you were screwing around with film photography, and you took, like, 2 people's pictures, and then someone else was like, those pictures are cool. Can you take mine? Like, sure.
I was like, yeah, but I take them on film, and I won't charge you until I know that it isn't ruined, because I have to get it developed. You know, like, it was just like, you just are trying it.
And now that's, like, the thing.
Yeah.
And it's probably the thing where most, like, as a whole team, it's a thing, everybody knows how to, like, make photo shoots operate. That's like the thing we're all really good at.
Yeah.
And it's not what you expected.
I do think, though, like, you have all this inventory that's great, and I think there is still this thing that you want to promote the stuff that isn't the bestseller. You know, like, I'm sure even with the crafters that you work with or the people that make things, you want to give all of those offerings, like, a spotlight, which I think I would struggle with, you know, even just being like, well, you should get this, too, you know.
Yeah. I mean, even my... Oh my gosh, yeah. My friend Mike, who does Ohio Chocolate, has stuff at Holy Craft, and he's always like, I mean, it has a really great spot and display at Holy Craft. I'm sure it's not your biggest seller.
People love that chocolate.
Oh, I bet. The white chocolate is so good. The white chocolate has dehydrated sour cream, and it's like, I didn't know I loved dehydrated sour cream.
Oh my gosh,
until then.
It's nuts.
Yeah.
So the other thing I wanted to talk, you work with a lot of vendors, and you talked about being easy to work with is like a strength of yours. What have you learned as far as managing all of those relationships, or, you know, so what have you...
Being easy to work with.
Being easy to work with, like, what have you found has been sort of a key to your success in that world?
I think that having, like, clear documents of communication for the communications that you have over and over and over and over again. So we have, like, you know, our contract that we send consigners, and then we have our, like, frequently asked questions, and then we just have, like, go-to responses, because people ask the same questions.
Kind of like templates that you can tweak.
Absolutely. So that has been helpful for us to kind of, like, condense the time that we spend on like answering the same questions over and over again, because what that does is it frees us up to talk to them about things that that we care about, that they care about, to talk about the products, to talk about things that are working, things that are not working, and so it helps us to actually, like, do some, like, relationship building when we don't have to from scratch communicate the same things over and over again, which are natural questions for everybody.
Right.
So that is something that we've learned. That's just like in the last couple of years, really.
Yeah.
That took a while to get there.
For sure.
It actually took somebody else doing it, like our manager does most of that communication.
Yeah. Well, I remember that was one of the main things we talked about when you were going through coaching was like, not all the vendors are the same, you know, and talking through, we're going to treat everyone awesome, but also like not everybody helps the staff get paid the same way, you know, which is a hard, it's hard. I think it's hard. What have you seen that's worked well as far as, one, there's Olivera and Holy Craft, who's just a supporter of the craft community, but then two, internally having to have processes that make sure bills get paid and money comes in and things are worth it. How have you found sort of successfully, or where have you learned like to walk that tension?
Yeah. I mean, the best part of that is learning to invest in the relationships that are working for the store. Like that has been really great. It's really like, okay, so we really pay attention, like these are our top vendors. And what's nice about being like a handmade store is like, this one lives down the street. And this one comes in every week to like buy a little gift for somebody.
You like
so,
know
we
them.
See them. Yeah, we see them and we know them. And so we think about and talk about like, what can we do to build up our relationship with them? What can we do to like make sure that they are happy working with us? Because they're doing great things for us. Like, and what can we do for like their products and their product line to like pass on feedback from customers to help grow their business? So like I'd say in like the last year or so, one thing we've done is like really focusing our workshop programming on our vendors and not just cool. Not just offering like, oh, we do this like intro to this class or intro to that class, but saying like, oh, this is an awesome vendor that we have that does these great watercolors. She should teach a watercolor class.
Oh, that's really cool.
This is the person that does these like great hand lettering prints. We should have her come and do a hand lettering
and then
class.
her customers can meet them, you know, or whoever's teaching it and feel that connection. That's really cool. I love that.
I wouldn't have guessed that.
Yeah.
That's one of the things we found in workshops is that it doesn't. We do this workshop called Branding on a Budget that teaches people as much branding as we possibly can, imagining
like
they have $0.
I send all my marketing people to it.
Oh, good. Awesome. Yeah, that's awesome.
It's like our favorite class.
It's our favorite one. But I thought when we started it, it was with the intention of we were going to this space, and I was like, none of these people, all these people are broke, and so they're never going to hire us. And so let's not walk in there trying to think we're going to pull someone into being a client, but let's just try and be as helpful as we can and leave. And we get a ton of clients from that workshop now, which is wild. We went to, and we get invited into other, like Indianapolis just had us come there in this co-working space and do it. We got like 3 different clients from it. After telling them everything to do, and I bet your vendors experience the same thing.
Where like a watercolor artist isn't going to teach someone and they're like, oh, I don't need to buy your watercolors anymore. Like they still are going to do that. You know, I think anything it shows more behind the scenes, or like your clients can feel that appreciation of, or customers like, oh, there's a lot of work that goes into making this.
Absolutely, and they connect with the artist.
Yeah,
that's a meaningful thing.
It's so meaningful. Yeah. That's like why I buy art, is when I meet the artist. You know, which is great.
Yeah. What has been for you as you've watched that? Have you watched and taken care of that community, that building that ecosystem of I'm a business in here, but I'm also supporting other businesses in here, and we're all taking care of each other. What have you seen? I'm sure you've seen people come in and try to just take advantage of that ecosystem. What have you seen as far as people coming in that doesn't work, or that causes people to like come in and try and participate, but it doesn't come back for them? What are mistakes people make when they're jumping in?
Yeah, mistakes people make is not seeing what's already going on and seeing what's out there. You know, there's room for craft shows, but like don't plan a first time craft show on the same date as another craft, like an existing craft show. Like, you know, just like make sure that you are aware of what's out there. And get to know people in the community. I mean, that's one that's like actually like reach out and say like, hey, you're doing this, I'm doing something similar. We should talk. We should like get a coffee or get a beer and get to know each other as people. Because you're like working in the same industry. There's not like crafty like mixer networky things like giant things that many like professionals have. You know, we don't do that. Maybe we should.
Maybe you should.
Well, blew my mind. We taught a class at Midwest Craft Con which you were doing a workshop at the same time as us called How to Make Love to Your Customers.
And I wanted to go to that.
I know, which was like a way more interesting.
We joked, we're like, we're going to take this whole class over to Olivera's.
Yeah, because that sounds like there's like some sexual tension with that class, which is impressive.
Amazing.
Yeah, that's like the thing you're like, I think I'm going to watch that one.
That was such a fun class, though.
It was fun. But it was realizing people came from all over the place there, and there's not a lot for those people to go to. And I think, we talk about working with small or tiny businesses. There's not a lot of competition for people who are investing in that world because it's not a super lucrative world to, you supporting and taking care of a crafter who's like knitting hats out of her house in New Jersey. It's not super lucrative,
right.
But it's a cool community to participate in.
So we do get together. It's great. So
Yeah.
there are these like CraftCon where it's like
That's really
learning
cool.
opportunities.
Yeah.
But then also like really fun stuff because like crafters like to get together and like make things and
Yeah,
create. And
yeah.
so there's more to it than just like a regular conference. Like I've been to a couple of just like businessy conferences.
Yeah, they're like actively doing the thing you like. When I taught the photo class, people were just like knitting while I'm like, this is amazing. Everyone was very calm because you're like making. I also like in our own community, I have friends now where if I want to hang out with them, I'm like, well, let's do this fun photo collaboration, or you do your project while I do my project here, and that's how we hang out.
Yeah, there's been a lot of times where it's Allie and another artist in here on a Sunday, like both making a random thing, but just like things they normally do in isolation, they're just doing next to each other, which is funny.
We can listen to the same like rap music, and it's fun.
Which is probably having coworkers is such a.
It's like having a coworker.
Yeah.
Yep.
People miss that when they're doing their own stuff.
Yeah.
It's been nice to have a staff. That was a big.
It's probably changed so much. Yeah.
And even as we grow, like having people not work one at a time, like having like a couple people on has been fantastic.
Yep.
Like it's good just like for morale in the store when it's just like you're not just like the only one like there
waiting,
all
staring
day.
at people,
and like really chatting up customers.
Yeah,
they're, like,
be my friend.
Scene a little bit. Like, hey, what are you doing today? So,
hi, can you stay for like an hour and just like talk?
Here's a chair. Yeah, that's amazing. Oh my gosh.
It's the exact same thing we noticed when we first started having. We were small, but having interns, we would always have one intern at a time. And as soon as we had 3 one summer, and we did it as none of our interns know this. They're probably too tired of us to even listen to this. But we did it to see if we liked having a team around. Right. And we had 3 one summer, and it was amazing to be like, oh, this is like fun now. It's not Ab and Allie and one person. There's 5 of us. When I'm annoying, everybody can gang up on me and be like, Adam, you're being super weird today. It was just cool. Goal. Yeah. Right, yeah. So you didn't feel like isolated. Yeah. The other thing I want to jump into, the last thing kind of with your vendors, was you've worked with a ton of small businesses and watched them not be able to deliver on time or not market themselves well. Is there anything you've seen that makes a difference between a successful small business or a small crafting business and one that sort of doesn't make it or succeed?
Yeah. I think that for crafters, it is like both a great thing and something that holds us back is the DIY attitude. They I'm going to do it myself. I'm going to do it all. Because there are times where if you get some outside help with something that you're not good at, it will propel your business. But you just think like, oh, I'm going to do it all. I can do everything. Years ago, we had a crafter had a great product, but the packaging was just terrible. And she's messing with it for like a year, trying to get it right. I was like, man, just hire a designer one time. Right. Like I would even pitch in. How much money I'm gonna sell so much more. If this product is accurately described by its packaging, and it was she did it,
and it worked. That's amazing.
It worked huge.
I love that.
So it's like, I'll just tweak it and I'll do it and I'll work on it. Yeah. But if that is not your skill set, whatever it is, like packaging, marketing, bookkeeping, don't spend so much time on it. Just like
outsource it. Yeah.
Pay somebody to do that thing so that you do what you do better.
Yeah, and I think that's like ultimately, I was just talking to a fitness studio in Cleveland thinking about working with them, and she said the same thing. She said, I just spent a full day working on this, and I can't do that. Like, it doesn't make sense number-wise. Right. I want to...
Why do you think people do that? Why do people like continue to struggle through stuff?
I think cash flow can be an issue. I mean, when you're a tiny business, the thing you always talk about, Adam, is even if Adam looked at us and said, if you just spend $20,000 right now, it'll make you $1 million. There's times where you're like, well, I don't have that money, you know? Mm-hmm. And so I think you're just left with, like, that's great, and I would love to make $1 million. But so I think cash flow, and then I think you are capable. I think if you took the time to learn it, you would actually be able to do it well. Yeah. But do you have time? Right. You know? Yeah. So I think someone who is a crafter could very much make a great website, but are you going to take a couple months off to learn? Right. I hope not.
Yeah, you know? Right.
Yeah. That's what I think. You can answer.
No, absolutely. I totally agree. And I think learning that balance of time and money is like that's the greatest lesson I've learned like in business, is that everything is just like writing that balance of like sometimes you have more time on your hands, sometimes you have more money on your hands, and like being able to like keep that in balance as you move forward. Like if you do that, you'll be great.
Yeah. Oh, totally. I love that.
Yeah, because before we were doing all of this stuff that we like doing, we had a lot of time and no money, right?
Right. Exactly.
So that doesn't work either.
Exactly.
That doesn't work either. Holy Craft is like, you described it once to me as like a feminist gift shop.
Yeah.
Right?
I would say that.
And so that's like a big, the cause and the activism behind that is a big deal to you, right?
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
Personally and then even professionally, right?
Yes.
You have some like some balloons that you sell at Surprise that would be like make a certain voter feel a type of way.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
talk a little bit about how you have just personally sort of reconciled. This is like, merge those, not reconciled, but like merge those things together, or kind of brought your perspective into that. And how has it, like, where do you think maybe, this is a trade-off I'm making of maybe I would do better if I didn't do so much of that, or maybe it's actually helping my business like connect with people. Just talk about that a little bit.
I mean, I think bringing that politics stuff is definitely much more Holy Craft than it is Surprise. And Holy Craft, again, is that it's so much of who I am, and I totally subscribe to the idea that like the personal is political. Yep. Like I'm not somebody that's ever going to hide my politics and hide what I believe, and that comes through in our store, and it works. I mean, Holy Craft came out of this sort of anti-corporate, anti-sweatshop, the thinking of like the early 2000s, that was like, this is not sustainable. Like when we do all this up here, it's not sustainable. And like getting back to like doing things with our hands and supporting small businesses. So it came out of that. And certainly like with the feminist stuff and the political stuff, that's our customer, I feel like. And we talk about Holy Craft as being like absolutely not an aspirational brand. Like we are an affirmational brand. Like people will go in to buy things that affirm who they are, and like buy things for their friends that their friends are gonna pick up and be like, oh, this is so weird, I love it, it's so me. Like that's and that's what we want. Like we want to affirm people in being like who they are, and being like proud of who they are, and their politics and their weird pop culture obsessions, and to just like be that, the pets, like be that like like nerdy political weirdo. And here's a gift shop for you.
I think going through Holy Craft for me is like half, oh my gosh, that's perfect for this person, but also, oh my gosh, I didn't know anyone else thought that or about that like I do, you know. And it's that, it is affirmation. It's like,
but I could also see if you were not that person, because we've had people who come into town who we take them through Holy Craft, and they are for sure, they would vote differently than you. They would, that's not an affirmational process for them.
Right.
Probably, they still find stuff.
No, that's what I was going to say.
That's true,
they still like stuff. They still will be like, this is cool. It might not be the exact same thing I think is cool, but...
Or there might be like one section that they're like, this is not my section.
Yeah, but I think that's fine. And if anything, I think that's like a really great world to live in. I think it's great to like confront things that you're not familiar with and have to process it, but also act like a civilized human being because you're in a store, you know?
Yeah.
So I think it's a good exercise for everyone, and you end up buying amazing things.
Yeah, it's a self-development practice to go shop at Holy Craft. That's what we talk about. It's like it's part of life coaching. So in the life coaching program, you go shop there, and it helps
we talked
you
about
awaken yourself.
The summer theme is like self-improvement, self-development,
Self-investment.
Self-investment.
Yeah.
And so maybe we'll just be like, and then once a week we go to Holy Craft.
Like,
invest in yourself.
And we get pedicures.
Yeah. Sounds like a great summer to me.
That's it.
Yeah.
How has there been times where you've bumped up against that in like a way that you would say cost you something or was difficult, challenging?
Sure. Difficult and challenging for sure.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it's cost us customers along the way. Absolutely. Right. But it's also like earned us the loyalty of other customers. So that's a trade-off. Yeah. But we've absolutely had to have like difficult conversations with people that like email us about like things that they saw in the store and explaining things and
how do you handle that typically?
In the same way that we present it in the store. It's things aren't like negative. There's not a lot of negativity to it. No. It's like everything is like we present our views in a very fun, colorful, positive way.
Yep.
So I think that we try to respond in that way, like, okay, this is kind of who we are, and this is a space, and we actually don't have to be neutral. We don't have an obligation to be neutral. You are welcome to open a store across the street with
that's
the exact
different.
opposite views, and more power to you. We also have these lovely Ohio cutting boards that are perfect
Who
for
can hate this? That's amazing.
I went through. You have like a. I'm going to say this because I think it will cause people to go into the store. But you have like an R-rated locker.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yep.
That's like buttons and magnets that are like R-rated. And I remember I took my parents in there, and I'm 31, and I was like, all right, they're going to go through the store. And I remember seeing like them hang like as they were moseying through the store. I'm like, all right, they went through all the prints that are back there, and then they're about to hit the R-rated locker. And for sure, they're going to pop it open because they're going to check it out. And I just remember watching like my parents' reaction, which was like a highlight of that was just fun. It was a good time to sit back and be like, I wonder how Dad's going to react to this one.
Yeah. I just love it because I don't see that stuff everywhere.
No.
And so I think that's a huge reason I go back often is I feel like there's new stuff, but also it's not just trendy. Like you're not just pushing on the latest trend, and I feel like it's just awesome to see familiar names of crafters or artists that I know, and then also you get introduced to a lot of stuff. So I think it's great. I love it.
Yeah, we do a name swap in my family for Christmas, and my cousin had just gone to see Beyonce live in Chicago.
And he loves Beyonce.
Yeah, and he's like I forget, freshman or sophomore in high school, and I was like, there's one place I can go.
Get random Beyonce stuff.
Yeah. I've got like it was like pencils and a mug and like some other thing.
Yeah, it was a candle.
Yeah, and he opened it and was like,
he loved it.
Oil. It was like too perfect. Yeah, it's
so
super good for gifts that way.
Yeah.
It's fascinating. I want to ask you more about the activism stuff, but
I think I was going to say we encounter sometimes clients say like, oh, I don't get political, like I own a business. And I think for me, as an adult, the term political, I sometimes just be like, this is just my life. Like, this is just how I think. And it's like humanity, So it's not this, we're not giving ourselves labels. We're just, this is how I treat people. And so I almost don't even see it that way sometimes. And I think I can be so within a similar, quote, bubble that when someone's like, oh, well, why are they getting political? It throws me off. Or I'm like, what do you mean?
Because, equality shouldn't be political.
No.
Hate shouldn't be political. Those are like human things.
They're just
we're human beings.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So, I mean, framing it in those ways, I think sometimes I laugh because I'm just like, well, I just have an opinion.
Yeah.
Yep.
As a person, so you went to Women's March in D.C.?
Yep.
So as a person who participates in what do you like to call it? Do you like to say politics, activism?
Yeah.
Like, how do you like to talk about it?
Yeah.
Okay. I just know everybody has a different way they like to talk about it.
Yeah.
So as a person who participates in that, we're sitting here in May of 2017, and it's like you can't get onto the internet without having like some pretty intense feelings. I like love Twitter with all my heart, and I like can't do it without getting into it.
Twitter's a rough place right now.
Yeah.
I just stick to my one list of like, okay, I can read this list.
Yeah. But even when people who I 100% agree with just tell me the news, I get heated.
Right.
Yeah.
So it doesn't even take an opinion to make me frustrated. How have you seen that change the business? Have you seen it change how people interact with either of your stores? How has that been?
I think that things definitely changed within the last 6 months for us, and we really had to think about our politics and what it means, and we've had a lot of internal conversations about that and what we stand for, and we were very we're just going to double down on who we are.
Yeah.
This is who we are. This is what we believe, and we're just going to put it out there more so than ever, and that's where we've actually found the most support in the last 6 months, because not only people want to reach out and be part of a community and know that they're not alone, and they feel like they're kind of backed into a corner. I think a lot of people feel that way right now, and to know that there are people that feel the same way as them, and here we're working with artists and crafters that are expressing these things in creative ways,
right?
And so being able to connect with that, seeing what you believe in a way that resonates with you aesthetically too. And it feels good. So and people I think are more so now than even a year or two ago. They want to put their politics on their sleeve.
I was gonna say, I think Holy Craft is such a great place for me to have a conversation due to a shirt I'm wearing or a mug that I'm drinking out of, and I think that it's almost like Holy Craft has a million little babies that leave and just do cool things. So cool babies all around. I don't know why I call them babies, because they're small objects. Seem to be small.
Yeah.
But,
products.
Yeah, products. But yeah, I think that that's something that people now really resonate with.
Yeah, absolutely. It feels good for us too to to be doing that, and one of my favorite customer stories actually is this woman that came in, and she was young, in her early 20s, and I was actually she was talking to one of our staff, and I was kind of working in the back and listening to this, and she said she's oh, my mom used to take me here when I was a kid. And she would always drag me here and show me all this feminist stuff, trying to make me a young feminist. She's I always hated it.
Oh my god!
But she's obviously now I'm a huge feminist. I come here for gifts for all my friends.
Oh my gosh!
And,
yeah.
So they had this great happy
Isn't that funny?
and and she was just so excited. She was buying all this awesome feminist stuff. And,
oh my
I'm
gosh!
In the back,
yeah, right. You're I gotta take the rest of the day off. That's so amazing. Because when you're around
to
for
span
that
a
long.
generation,
Yes. We've definitely seen people grow up.
Crazy.
That's
so cool.
That's been the best, actually.
Yeah.
Of just being a neighborhood store for so
Yeah.
long.
All of a sudden, you're you're an adult. Yeah.
Yeah, I love it.
That's really cool.
So a lot of this is connected to just passion, heart, curiosity, what you're into, what you believe, what you resonate with.
Who you are.
Where have you had to say, I'm going to put on my business owner pants and care about profits, or talk about how you, because typically in our work, I typically find people are one of those two things. They either care about passion and then we'll figure out business as we go, or they care about business and then I don't really care about people's feelings or passion with this thing.
Well, for me, I would say that's probably the new store.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because it's a little bit more distanced from who you know, like, or what Holy Craft is,
Yeah.
who it is.
Yeah.
Maybe like think about it as a person.
Yeah.
But what Holy Craft is, so it is a little bit more of like something that we're building and something that like we're trying out. I mean, obviously the two things inform each other.
Yeah.
Right.
So we've definitely learned lessons of surprise about like making a profit. They were like, oh yeah, we should be doing that at this store over
Yeah.
here too.
Yeah.
And the you know the bits about like heart and passion. We want to make sure to carry over into surprise because it is such a personal thing to throw a party. It's such a personal thing to throw an event. And so many of our clientele are like people throwing things for their loved ones.
Yeah.
Like this is a party for my husband.
Yeah.
This is a shower for my sister. And they just want to get it right. And they just, you know, it's not about like they want to be the perfect hostess. It's about like they want to do this wonderful thing for a loved one. And so like we have to keep that in mind too, that like that really human connection aspect of parties. Like we will help you make it look good. But when it looks good, like you will feel good and you will feel like you have shown this person some love.
Yep.
So that's something that we've brought into that.
That's really cool. I like that. I like that they inform each other.
Yeah.
It's cool.
That's a lot of fun. I've done that with the coffee business where I was like, I had so many people going through coaching and I was like, I want to just kind of
Try it.
start something new again from the beginning and try to take my own advice, which is hard. But a little bit less personally connected, a little bit more connected to the numbers, where when I sit down with somebody here and, you know, it's just very personal. It's like me and across the table.
Right.
It's very cool. Very cool. Is there anything else? Any other questions? Anything you want to say that you didn't get to say?
I can think of.
That's beautiful.
What are the top kinds of parties that you like? What's the top type of party?
Top parties at Surprise, I would say probably bachelorette parties, birthday parties, and baby showers.
Okay. Yeah, those seem like the kind of parties I would get invited to.
Yep.
You know,
Okay,
besides just a themed party.
No, that's a good question.
Yeah.
I should have asked some of those questions. So what would be, if you're going to say, hey, I'm going to have to throw a birthday party, but I need it to not be like lame cliche from like Party City or whatever, what would you
What
tell me to
should
do to
buy-
make a
would it
party
buy?
awesome?
What should you buy?
I always think I start with color. Like what colors do you want your party to be?
Okay.
Because that will help kind of put everything together. Like if you know the colors that you like, then you can sort of put everything together from there.
Got it.
We can make it look a certain way. And I always say, like, don't forget the experiences that are happening at the party. Like have a photo booth. Always have a photo booth at a party. That is like a clear spot.
Always have a photo booth.
Yeah.
Always have a photo
That's
booth.
in the 10 Commandments.
People will love it.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
good.
absolutely. Yeah, people always take pictures there.
Always,
and then
yeah.
like we'll have
Share
those
it.
pictures.
Yeah.
Always have a photo booth. And like think about like games and activities and things for people to like be involved with at the party.
Yeah.
That are like fun and like help people get to know other people at the party.
Yeah.
So yeah,
That's cool.
Don't forget the experiences.
Yeah. We've even seen, we do a lot of like fake parties for photo shoots for clients, but a lot of like experiential food things, like make your own whatever, you know, like anything that gets people that aren't just like taking like chips from
They're like, make your own taco bar. And I'm like, that's actually just easier than serving people tacos.
Yeah,
you know, because you don't
absolutely.
have to compile it.
Yeah. I love it. That's amazing. So if someone is listening to this and they're going to visit Columbus or they're in Columbus, how can they connect with you, both stores? What are great ways online or just literally come to the store?
Yeah, literally you can come to the store.
Yeah.
Holy Craft in Clintonville, Surprise in the Short North. And you can find us online, Surprise Modern Party on Instagram and Facebook, and Holy Craft as well. Yeah.
I love it. Cool.
It's beautiful.
Well, thanks for being on.
Yeah,
the
thanks for
podcast.
your time.
Thank you guys. It's super fun.
Good.
I just finished a master's degree and like couldn't get a job anywhere. I couldn't get an interview. It was just like, I was like, what am I gonna do?
Yeah.
And they were like, well, hey, we have an opening for a karaoke host on Friday nights.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, yep.